with dementia. His extensive experience on TV. Anyone seen him on TV? I know I have. TV, radio, and its speaking engagements enable him to deliver a wealth of knowledge on the challenges associated with Alzheimer's, especially for those in the Black community. He started his research in Nigeria and started to find some really interesting numbers. So I won't steal from your presentation, but help me welcome him.
Sure, let's see.
Let's see, I didn't turn it on yet. There we go.
Hello. Well, louder. Well, good morning, everyone. How are we doing today?
Good morning. Good.
Good, good. Okay, so I hope everybody has and thank you, Eni. Appreciate the introduction. I hope everyone has a handout that says healthy living for your mind, brain and body. Everybody has that? Okay, good. We'll also be sending out some more helpful information, but please make sure you have somewhere, maybe on your phone or something, the Alzheimer's Association contact information. They make all of us volunteers and staff memorize it, 800-272-3900. They have, yeah, the one at the bottom of the page. They have, I gotta tell you, I'm really impressed with the support services that the association provides. Everything from legal services to aids to financial planning, whatever it is. And it's a 24-hour, 24/7 support line, so you can call them anytime. You can also send them emails and have your questions answered. Very, very good support. So, and especially for the black community that probably don't have as much access to information, like at the Myerberg Center, for instance. This would be a really, really good, resource to have. Okay. As Eni said, I'm from Nigeria. You might have noticed from my accent, I don't sound like I grew up in Pikesville, right? I actually lived in Pikesville for quite a few months. This is the reason why I'm in Baltimore. I have some very, very close friends, the Schambergs, Shoshana and Aaron Schamberg. They're just not too far from here. They let me stay during COVID. It's like, I came from Nigeria, I wasn't sure where I was going to stay. They're like, yeah, come over. If we live, we live. If we die, we die. It was before the vaccines. So I'm really, it was after the vaccines, when they had both been vaccinated. I mean, they're seniors as well. But they were very, very gracious to me, so I owe them a lot. Again, the reasons I am in Baltimore, because I was traveling all over the country. I run a foundation called the Brain and Body Foundation. So as we all know with foundations, you gotta try and raise funds and you gotta let people know what you're doing. My foundation focuses on kids with brain disorders, so everything from cerebral palsy to autism to seizures and all that. And then in the process, we started addressing kids with sickle cell disease, which again is primarily a black problem. It's a terrible disease. You could get dead before the age of 5. Almost 50%. Those who survive maybe 30 years of age, they usually dead by 30 years of age, and we have over 4 million of them in Nigeria. And there was really no solution to that until we started looking into it, and we started seeing what could be done to strengthen the body. That's our approach when it comes to brain disorders. The goal is, what can we do to strengthen the human brain, to improve its resilience, to help it to recover better, even under attack from whatever means there are. And that's really what's happening in things like dementia and probably Parkinson's disease, is as a result of ongoing continuous damage over a period of time that eventually leads to not just memory loss, but failure of the brain. And I think people tend to underestimate the impact of these things. And so we're going to be talking about some of these things, some of the things that make you or make you more prone, give you other than age, of course, and genes, but there are specific things that we are seeing that are making you more prone to having dementia. And I'm particularly concerned about it because I'm from a third world country, as you know, most African countries are. We don't have access to all the great expertise, doctors, healthcare establishments that you all enjoy over here. And even at that, it's still a big struggle. We don't have any of those things. In fact, medical centers that actually focus on neuroscience and the brain, it's hard to find. Maybe South Africa, and this is a continent of 55 countries. The problem is that we have to understand how our brains work to some degree and what it takes to protect and prevent it. Even though you are in a wonderful country where you have access to all the tools and everything, even at that, I feel my fear is that sometimes we move away from the basics, which are like how the brain, again, I keep saying how the brain works, but things like exercise, things like diet, things like oxygen flow, things like blood flow, all these things are very, very important. So I'm going to start with my spiel, and then we're going to get into it. Now, the first question I have is, who knows what dementia is? You don't count. Yeah, no, you're out. Sorry. All right, dementia, yes, ma'am.
Well, I get dementia and Alzheimer's confused. To me, they're pretty much the same thing. My mother had dementia, and she didn't know where she was a lot.
Got it.
She forgot everything. She always knew who I was.
She always knew who you were.
Always.
Okay.
But everything else was a little iffy.
It was what?
A little iffy.
A little iffy. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Dementia is the general term
Yes.
for memory loss, and then Alzheimer's is what, about 80% of it or something?
Very good. Very good. Yes. So give a round of applause, please. Yes. Dementia, and you two get one too. Anyone else? Okay. So as she said, dementia is like a general term. It has to do with the brain's processing power, but the ability to reason, the ability to rationalize. The most obvious thing is memory. So you forget where you are, how to get home, how to balance your checkbook, whatever, or recognize your family members. But that's what most people think about when it comes to dementia. But I can tell you there are a lot of diseases where there's severe memory loss, and it's not can be called dementia. They are still able to function. So it's more a problem of the brain's ability to process. Now that can be manifest in different ways, from your ability to calculate, to remember names, to remember faces, to remember where you are, to even use the bathroom. So what memory is usually one of the main things you see. Alzheimer's disease, like she said, 70 to 80% of all dementias are not caused by, but are Alzheimer's disease. And usually what we begin to find out now is a combination of things. It's not just Alzheimer's disease. It might be a combination of Lewy body dementia or vascular dementia. You've probably heard about those, or mixed dementia. So it's a combination of those things. But Alzheimer's disease, and I want to tell you this and that's the reason why I draw this up here, because Alzheimer's disease is an interesting factor. You can't really tell exactly what it is. Things like vascular dementia is as a result of multiple strokes, or maybe multiple injuries to the brain. But Alzheimer's disease is an interesting one, because when it comes to Alzheimer's disease, it's the brain itself that is shutting itself down after a series of injuries and attacks and damage to the brain that the brain has unfortunately lost the ability to compensate for. So I'm going to unpack it a little bit, but let's look at this picture here. So what we have in front of us here is I know I don't draw too well, but this is a picture of the human brain, right? Okay? By the time you get to start having dementia or Alzheimer's disease, you've lost about 30% of the total mass of the brain. If you in your 90s, 80s and 90s maximum, you lose about 10% over a period of time. But kind of like your muscles, you lose your muscle mass over a period of time. But the brain, you lose about 30%. That is a lot of brain tissue and processing power that is being lost. Not even funny. But what I want to focus on here is the basic unit. The basic unit of the brain is called a synapse. That's correct. So there are two brain cells that must communicate. And the way they communicate is that what the brain cell or neuron 1 sends chemicals or neurotransmitters from itself to neuron 2. And then neuron 2 receives those signals and sends to another neuron 3, and then neuron 4, and so on and so forth. That is the basic function of the brain. You can't do nothing, you can't do anything if this process does not take place. Make sense? So whether you're thinking, whether you're moving an arm, whether you're digesting your food, whether you're looking from one eye to the other, from one side of the room to the other, this has to happen. And these are part of a network. So this happens over 1 billion, 1 trillion times. They say in human body you have over 100 trillion. Say it with me. 100 trillion.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. I don't know who has the time to actually sit down and count those, but that's what they say. So the experts say that, so we're just going to believe that. So this is the network of the brain. So all this is happening over and over and over again. Over and over and over again, multiplying. That's how the brain cells communicate with each other. When it comes to Alzheimer's disease, it basically attacks and shuts down. And many times it's haphazard, sometimes there's a rhyme or reason to it. But Alzheimer's disease is pretty much a shutting down of the synapses and the network of the brain. Have you heard that before?
Never can neuron 2 take breaks?
Take breaks. That's pretty much, sometimes that's really what happens. I'm working on a book called Glitch, right? And the glitch is that sometimes neuron 1 is working perfectly okay. Then the next day, neuron 1 just decides, I want to take a break. And all of a sudden, it's not working like it should. I have patients, I've seen people who have, like, the husband, couple living together, or the wife comes in, and but this way, the husband comes in and he sees the wife going through their mail, and he's like, who are you? And the next thing, there's an altercation, and he ends up being physically aggressive and hits her, because at that moment in time, the network went off. Let's put it that way. And that happens, as you know, in several different conditions. Maybe it's not physical aggression, it could be verbal aggression, it could be verbal abuse, it could be just, I've forgotten where I am. Took a walk down the street and all of a sudden I can't find my way back home, even though I've been living in this neighborhood for over 40 years. Okay, so there are so many things that could grow. I needed to show this all to you because this acts as a foundation for what we'll be going through. So everybody has one, right? Okay, I'm going to start with the first. I'm not going to start with the first one. I'm going to start with the last one because that's the last one. So just flip your page around to the orange line. This is just a quick introduction. This is healthy living for your brain and body. This is a program that the Alzheimer's Association put together. And basically, the bottom line is what are the things that you need to know and do on a daily basis to take care of your brain. Got it? So the number 7 there says stay connected. And I'm starting with that because this helps to illustrate what we're talking about. The brain cells, the more connections you have between brain cells, the more robust those connections are. So one brain cell could connect with over 10,000, in some cases over 40,000 brain cells. One single brain cell can connect over 40,000 other brain cells. That the more robust, and I can't emphasize this enough, the more robust those connections are, the healthier your brain will be. The less robust those connections are, the less healthy your brain will be. Got it? So everything we'll be talking about would be what? To help facilitate, enhance those connections. So that if and when there's a challenge or a disease or a brain disorder, you would have redundancy, you would have backup, all right? So if there was, let's say you had 100 trillion connections and you had a disease, it knocks about 20 trillion from that. You've still got about 80 trillion. I'm just using these numbers randomly. You still got about 80 trillion. But if you started with 50 and you knock out 20, you're left with 30. That may not be enough to sustain what you're doing, to sustain daily life, is what I'm trying to say. Okay? So staying connected, this refers more to connecting with other people. There's a huge amount of data now showing that the more connected we are, the healthier you would be, and also even in terms of financially healthy. financially healthy, physically healthy, mentally healthy, emotionally healthy. Ladies, it comes a lot more easier to ladies than men. This is what I've noticed. But ladies tend to be more intuitive. They're more connected. They tend to be more, or you all tend to be more connected with one another. Women are less likely, so yeah, we can handle.
You're stubborn.
We're stubborn. Okay, that's one way to look at it. True. So, and the same thing. Think about it with regards to trees as well. In a tree in a forest, the isolated tree is most likely the one going to be knocked down if there's a strong wind or there's a storm. But if the trees are together, they have their roots intertwined with each other, they're all helping to support one another. Does that make sense? In the same way, the network has to be robust. So now that we've established that, let's go to the front, back to the front page. All right. First one says, what does the first one say? The first, what does it say? Get quality sleep, absolutely. Does everybody know that we need about 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night? It may be a challenge. I see some eyebrows raised. It may be a challenge for some, and yes, as we grow older, sleep gets interrupted. But I'm going to say this, sleep is one of the most important things for the connection, for the building of the connections. All the things that happen during the day, the brain, especially the parts of the brain that have to do with memory, like the hippocampus. Everybody know about the hippocampus, right? The hippocampus is like the memory center of the brain. That is where, or it is during sleep time that the networks consolidates, they become the brain, all those things that you learned that were of value, the brain puts them together, consolidates, and then puts them in the specific regions where they apply, like the visual center, the emotional center, and so forth. If your sleep is not quality enough, let's put it that way, that process will be interrupted. Okay. So I have a talk I give called Dementia's Dirty Dozen, and one of them is insomnia. And they all start with the letter I, by the way. Insomnia, and we just mentioned another one, isolation, connections. Insomnia doesn't mean you're not sleeping at all. It covers everything, most sleep disorders, from having too very light sleep to being awakened so quickly, so on and so forth. Sleep apnea is another one. Now, this is very important to, and I see a few black faces here. We, as a race, have greater problems with sleep. Now, I can tell you one of the 2 reasons why this is so, but in general, as you grow older, you have problems with sleep. One of the things we're finding out is that a nutrient called vitamin D, ever heard of that? Ever heard of vitamin D? Okay. A nutrient called vitamin D is what helps in the whole process of taking you through from shut eye, from the time you close your eyes to the time you wake up. Now, this sleep is not just one monolith. There's deep sleep, there's REM sleep, there's non-REM sleep, and each of these different phases of sleep have a specific function on the brain. And if you're not, it's like shifting, like a car. You drive a car, stick shift. And everybody remember those? Gear 1, gear 2, gear 3. I learned on a stick shift too, so I'm not as young as I look. Thank you. So you're taking from gear 1, gear 2, gear 3, gear 4, and then you come back to gear 1 when you slow down, right? Or again, you move to gear 2. That process happens 4 or 5 times a night, taking you through the different phases. And without going into too much detail, vitamin D is what helps you, what takes you through those shifts. Yes, ma'am. Jawohl. Yes. And so if your vitamin D levels are low, it's going to affect your sleep. And if your sleep is affected, like I said, the ability for your brain to form connections and memories shall be affected. Yes, Eddie?
If you know you're vitamin D deficient and you're like just had a light bulb on because you don't sleep well,
Yeah.
Do you just go to the grocery store and get a supplement? Is that something that you recommend?
Not in this country, because for medical legal reasons, I cannot say just go to the pharmacy. But in Nigeria, we don't have access to vitamin D testing. It's very expensive and it's ridiculous. But you got to go out of the country to do some tests. It's a special thing. So I just say go. Let me tell you. Let me put it this way: if you're over 40 and you're overweight and you're black and you live in this country, and this is we're in fall now, right? We're soon coming to winter. You are by definition vitamin D deficient. Yes.
How do you know how much vitamin D you should have?
Okay, good question. Ideally, you should work with a doctor who will will prescribe a certain amount, have you come back, test again, and have you come back and test again. Ideally. But you can go to most centers here, you can test your vitamin D levels. The range should be from 30 to 100, that's the number they give you, 30 nanograms per ml. But 30 to 100, you just remember that number. Most people that I've seen are below 30, white and black. And it's going to get worse during the winter because, why do I say during the winter? You don't get it. Well, the sun comes out, doesn't it?
It gets dark.
Isn't the vitamin D made in your skin?
That's correct. Yes, that is it. So yes, the sun comes out. Yes, it gets dark, but you still got at least about 7 or 8 hours at the least of sunlight a day. But who goes out in the sun when it's 40 degrees, 20 degrees, 30 degrees? You're fully clad. And to make vitamin D, as he said, your skin has to be exposed a certain amount of sunlight. A certain amount of your body has to be exposed. So if you're just going out with if it's just your face and your hands, for instance, you're not getting out. Besides, at this time of the year, the tilt of the earth is such that you don't get the specific rays from the sun that will help your body make vitamin D. And those are the ultraviolet B rays. You need a specific type of rays from the sun. You don't get that in the winter. So even if you go out butt naked, you're not getting it. Yes, ma'am.
If you need to take Ambien or Tylenol PN in order to get the 6 hours sleep, are they bad for your brain?
What do you think?
I don't know.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, I've heard, but what's the alternative if you can't sleep?
Okay. You want to get your vitamin D levels normal. And what they're finding out, what doctors are finding out is when you get to about 60 nanograms. So I remember I said 30 to 100. It's only when the levels are hitting 60 that they get higher and better results. Now you can go back to your doctor too and ask about melatonin. So melatonin is the brain makes melatonin. Again, as you go older, you don't make as much. So you can, and I do this with my patients back in Nigeria. We recommend melatonin, especially for the kids who are hyperactive or the adults who can't sleep very well, and it helps. But there are nuances to that your doctor will know about. So but vitamin D is probably the most important. We know people are low in magnesium as well, probably potassium as well. These are all things, and vitamin C, and even vitamin B. So now in Nigeria, we don't use drugs at all. For my foundation and for my patients, no drugs at all. I use only nutrients. So I've immersed myself deeply in how these nutrients can affect the brain, how much to use and when to use them. But like I said, in this country, you've got to, the way it's being done, what should be done is you need to check with your doctor for these things. But if you're having problems with sleep, your vitamin D levels are probably low. Yes, ma'am.
So I have everything you just mentioned.
Good.
We, in the senior center, are probably lucky enough to be old.
Lucky.
And maybe lucky enough to have Medicare and or Medicaid. And if you have anything wrong with you, I find that my doctor wants to take my blood every 3 months.
Okay.
So I've been too high in my D3, and I got on a spinach kick once, and she looked at my blood work and said, "What are you eating?" It was too much spinach. My
Potassium was high?
Was high.
Okay.
So I do find that every 3 months, because of a thyroid condition, and then they will take my blood and find out. But I also take a little piece of an Ambien. I've had insomnia my whole life.
Ah,
Bedtime is
That's
the
your
time
heart.
to solve world hunger.
bedtime is the time to solve world.
And so I played with my D levels, and it really didn't work. I don't take it all the time. I had stopped it before COVID, and then
You gotta get back on it. Did you never see your numbers? Did they ever tell you exactly what the numbers were?
the numbers of my,
Vitamin D.
I don't remember.
Okay. You need. Sometimes doctors are very leery about
I have them probably in my phone.
You have the numbers. So you can go and say you can check them while we're talking. Maybe I can take a look at them. Doctors are very, very queasy about them, but the doctors, neurologists who now treat dementia. Remember I said that the range is from 30 to 100. Most doctors who now treat dementia, who test vitamin D levels, they find out that if you want to prevent or if you want to maximize, optimize your brain, you need to be closer to 100 than 30. This is what they're saying. Now, having said that, I also say you need to have other things like your magnesium levels need to be checked, and your potassium levels need to be checked, because your body, there's something called vitamin K2, that helps to take out the calcium and takes it out of the blood and puts it in the bones. What vitamin D does is that it raises your calcium levels. So that is what doctors are concerned about. If you take too much vitamin D, your calcium levels might be too high. Okay? But if most people are deficient, it's highly unlikely, but I'm just telling you that now. So if you take enough vitamin D, it might in some cases raise your calcium. And therefore, I always recommend vitamin K2, not K1, but vitamin K2. K2 can be gotten over the counter, but what K2 does is that it reduces, and they now have them in combinations now, you can easily get them. It reduces the calcium, it takes the calcium out, like I said, and puts it back in the bones and the teeth. By the way, you do not want to be taking calcium supplements that much, because calcium supplements, we're now finding out, can raise your risk of cardiovascular disease. Why? Because the calcium in the blood can deposit in the blood vessels and cause some kind of blockage over time. Yes, ma'am?
Does vitamin K also make your blood thicker enough?
So vitamin K1 is a clotting factor, but I'm talking about K2, which is it's a bone. It helps to take calcium out of the blood and put it in the bones. So again, people get those two confused. K1, and these are things you need to go check up with your doctor as well. Obviously, I want to be clear that I'm not trying to give you specific medical advice here, but these are things that I think most people need to be aware of, so they can discuss intelligently with their doctor. K1 is for clotting. K2 is for the bones, for calcium in the bones. So the combination of vitamin D and vitamin K2 is a really, really good combination. I use that for my patients back home a lot. Yes, potassium, vitamin, but most seniors have low potassium levels, except if you're binging on spinach. I don't know who even does that. Who even does that? Okay, all right. What do we do? So changes. Before I leave sleep, one big thing I want to really encourage people to have, if there was one thing I would encourage when it comes to sleep, if there was just one thing, it would be this: get a sleep mask. Get a sleep mask. Your brain needs darkness to do all the things that it does. You can't have the flickering light, you can't have the TV on, you can't have the windows, blinds open. You need to sleep in darkness. If you cannot get total darkness in your room, get a sleep mask. I travel everywhere, I have a sleep mask in my bag. Everywhere I go, I have a sleep mask. If you're only going to get 6 hours of sleep, then you got to make those hours count. And the best way to make those hours count is getting a sleep mask.
57.
57. Okay, so it was good. That's not high. And your doctor may have been afraid of that, right? I mean, okay, so 57 is good. I checked mine last year, I was 83. And I'm like, I still have work to do based on what the studies show. Yes, ma'am?
What happens when you have to get up to go to the bathroom 5 times?
What happens when you have to get up to go to the bathroom 5 times a day?
You take the mask off each time you have to.
I would recommend you take the mask off if you have to go to the bathroom. So you don't stub your foot. I know, I mean, that's a challenge too, to go into the bathroom and all that. And there might be some solutions for that. But anyway, but yes, sleep mask is very important. You've got to sleep in darkness. You've got to sleep in darkness. I can't overemphasize it. What's the next one? All right, next one is be smoke-free. I don't even know why it's here, but I would think that would be self-evident. Why is smoking bad for your brain? And how can it lead to dementia? Unless you're George Burns.
It constricts your vessels.
It constricts your vessels. Very good. Yes, it constricts your vessels, and of course, your brain needs a lot of blood flow. Over 20% of the blood flow, the blood that comes out of your heart, over 20%, along with all the nutrients and the fluids and all the energy, everything your body needs, over 20% of that goes to the brain first. Okay, so anything that messes with the blood flow, I know that's not a technical term, but anything that messes with the blood flow will eventually, over time, can lead to damage to the brain. But it's not just blood flow. Cigarettes also have a lot of toxins in them and can cause chemical damage to the brain over a period of time. So that's very important that and that applies for other things like smoking marijuana. Marijuana, there's a heated debate. There's no question the health benefits of marijuana for the brain. There's no question about that. Whether it's the gummies or you're eating it or whatever. The downside is that there's no question that over a period of time, marijuana can affect your memory. Okay? It may not cause dementia, but it can affect your memory. So that is a trade-off that doctors have to balance from time to time. And some people just don't care. They just smoke marijuana because it makes them feel better. Okay, so it says what changes you can make now, what changes you can make in 3 months about smoking. Another thing too, all in the line of toxins, we're trying to shift away from toxins in the home. We know that a lot of cleaning products and personal care products, hair care products, over a period of time, you're inhaling them all the time, it can get in through the lungs, also through the skin over a period of time. So you want to start, there are toxins, and you know what I'm talking about, right? Home care products, personal care products, chemicals. We use a lot of chemicals. So if you're cleaning your home, or if someone's cleaning your home, a common sense thing would be to open the windows and have as much airflow as possible so that the chemicals don't concentrate in one place. So you don't inhale all of those, especially if you're painting the home, for instance. These are all things that can damage the brain over a period of time. All right, how are we doing so far? You doing okay? All right. Am I speaking too fast? Are you getting what I'm saying clearly? Okay. Sometimes I have a struggle. Some people say, I didn't get what you were saying. Actually, when I started speaking, I had this really good friend. She was in her 70s, and she would go with me everywhere. She prayed about it, and she's like, you know what? I think you might need some help. I had just come from Nigeria then, and I spoke fast. I had a thick accent. So she would come sit in the front row, would bring out her yellow pad, and she would write all the words that I pronounced, or she would say, you pronounced well, but we Americans can't understand what you're saying. And so she would teach me how to pronounce them the way you all are more used to. Y'all. I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, by the way, so that we it doesn't show. So yeah, so I learned a few slang as well, and so so after the classes she would sit down in the car and then she would bring out each word and she would say, okay, pronounce this, and I'll pronounce it the way I knew how to. She would correct me and have me say it over and over again. So over a period of time, I started learning how to speak to white audiences. And so the blacks didn't have trouble with me, well the whites did. So anyway, take care of your mental health. Take care of your mental health. That again is self-explanatory. One of my dirty dozen, the first one is illnesses. And illnesses could be the physical illnesses like cardiovascular disease, and we'll get to that in a minute, hypertension, diabetes, and so on. But then there's also the mental health problems like depression, schizophrenia, obviously. There are all these other conditions that people deal with and they have to live with, all the anxiety, and they just deal with them, especially you ladies. I mean, you just live with those things, it's like a part of your life. And I gotta say, one of the reasons that they're saying women have twice the risk of dementia as men is one of those reasons, is how you have higher emotional, I gotta be careful here, and a lot more women that could get beat up, but a lot more of those mental health, depression type, anxiety type problems, because you take the weight, like she said, the world is dying of hunger and all that, we got to solve these problems. You tend to take the weight of the problems upon your shoulders. Family problems, school problems, kid problems. Anyway, so mental health is an issue that you really want to be able to be aware of, that this can damage your brain over a period of time and eventually kind of cause dementia. Is that deep? Hard? It is true. They shouldn't have. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to share, at night I struggle with just turning the mind off.
Yeah.
So now the bedtime schedule is turn off the TV at least a half an hour before.
Yeah.
Try not to watch a really emotionally interesting
Yeah.
movie
Yeah.
if I want to get a good night's sleep. And I do like a small 10-minute bedtime meditation.
Yeah.
And it really has helped. So like getting the mind ready to sleep, and that meant it kind of has helped my mental health, but it's also helped my sleep.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Yes. Turning the lights down and just kind of shutting things down before. It's called sleep hygiene. People could refer to it that way. Those are things that you want to do. I found out too, again, back to vitamin D, I had it when I was in Nigeria. My cousin was kidnapped, and it happens a lot in Nigeria. And they wanted money, and so we kind of the family got together, and we gave the kidnappers money. Anyway, he was released, he came back to stay with me, and for nights he was having just major nightmares. He just could not sleep. I mean, this is a kid, he's like in his 30s, major nightmares and all that. So finally I was like, you know what, take some vitamin D to go to bed. And that helped. Just taking it at night helped him get better. So it helped, like I said, I tried to explain how it works. Yes, ma'am?
If you do take vitamin D, is it better to take it at night?
Yes, so my routine is I take vitamin D, vitamin C, and fiber supplement. Yes, it's better at night. And all night. It's better all nights because, again, your brain and your body are doing the work of repairing and recovering. So the way I rationalize it is that why not help your brain and body do what they are doing? So give them the tools, give them the resources. Unless it's so I don't take B vitamins because B vitamins give you energy at night, but I take it during the day. But vitamin D, among the things that my brain and my body need. So I would recommend that. Yeah.
What are the other vitamins you said to take at night to help you sleep?
I don't take it necessarily to help me sleep because I sleep fine. But I take them to help the body do the work of repairing and recovering. Vitamin C, and I take fiber. Okay? Next one, take care of your mental health. If you have issues, you guys are in the US, if you have access to a psychotherapist, a psychologist, you'll be surprised. A counselor, they might help, they can help. They might just provide you with skills to be able to cope, so with coping skills to be able to deal with these emotional health issues that you may not have thought about. So again, it's very helpful. Another one, get moving. Everybody say get moving.
Get moving.
You don't have to use the way I said it. You can say it the way I'm just kidding. Yes, absolutely. Get moving. And you guys doing the cardio drumming? I love it. I've never heard that before. Cardio drumming. Love it. That's pretty good. So what do they recommend? Again, it doesn't say it here, but as much as possible, you want to move around a lot, especially after a meal. Why do I say after a meal? What?
Helps your digestion.
Helps your digestion. Yes. What else? So when you eat, your body, there's a lot of glucose, especially if it's a starchy food, or has sugar in it. Your body's blood glucose spikes, right? What also spikes when your body's blood sugar spikes? Your insulin levels. Your insulin levels go high. What we are finding out, and this is another one of the dirty dozen, insulin resistance. Anybody heard of that? Insulin resistance, yes. Insulin resistance is a killer. It's a big no-no. You want to make sure that people are now saying we got to keep our insulin levels low. We got to keep our insulin levels low. So when you go out on a walk, what happens is that blood flows better, and also because you're using your muscles are taking in more of the glucose. And so keeping the glucose levels low to normal, and therefore keeping the insulin levels low to normal. Okay? The thing is this, what we know is that you can have normal insulin levels, but still have, you could have normal blood glucose levels. That means your pancreas is doing its work and your muscles are taking in. You could have normal blood glucose levels and have very high insulin levels. And we now know, like I said, high insulin levels can be a killer, not just to the brain, but to the body. There's a whole lot of studies behind that, so that's something you want to talk to your doctor about as well. So again, encourage 2-3 times a week, do something that helps you maybe to some degree break a sweat, depending on what you can handle. Okay, you don't want to hurt yourself. Yes, ma'am.
You would have to break a sweat. Can't you just walk around in circles until you get tired?
Can't you just walk around in circles until you get tired? That's certainly better than just sitting down and watching TV. Yes, absolutely. You watch TV too?
No,
You
I
walk
walk
around.
2,500 steps a day.
Very good.
I give myself a 1 day off,
Good.
but I do not like to perspire.
You don't like to perspire.
So I'll do it until I'll do 10 circles more than I should,
Right.
according to my body.
Yeah.
And then I rest. So I thought I was interval training.
I'm sure that's not what they had in mind when they were talking about high energy interval training, but that is good. You're doing what you feel comfortable with. You don't want to overstress yourself. So she was talking about walking around a lot and then taking a rest and walking around a lot. I mean, that helps as well. Whatever you can do to be active anything will help. I'm just saying that too. They're now finding out that things like strength training, David does. You got David back in the back seat over there. Ask him to talk to you about strength training. He will know you better. He will, gradually build you up. Because what we know is that strength training not only helps the muscles, it also helps the brain, probably even more than just aerobic walking around. When the muscles contract, they produce chemicals that are helpful to the brain. By the way, they also help with osteoporosis as well. Strengthening your muscles translates to having denser, stronger bones. Okay, especially with a bag of chips. Eat healthy. All right, eat healthy. I have a problem when they just say just eat a balanced diet or eat healthy, because it's too generic. It doesn't specify the things that your brain and body needs. I mean, everybody did. Truthfully, we're not, as doctors, we're not trained to understand how nutrition affects your brain and your body. We're not even taught that way. I had to take a hiatus from a 10-year, shall we say, wilderness experience from medicine to actually learn things outside of medicine to things I'm teaching now and the tools I'm using now to help my patients. I didn't learn them from medicine. I had to go way out of medicine to learn them. And one of the big problems I have with a balanced diet, and a balanced diet is good where you have the veggies, the proteins, and of course some starch, carbohydrates. But the problem is that if all we say is eat a balanced diet, you're still going to be lacking specific nutrients that your brain and your body needs. And we mentioned one of them today, haven't we? Which one did we mention? Vitamin D. There's no way you're going to get enough vitamin D from your food. I mean, it's just token amounts. It's absolutely impossible. So if you cannot get it from being out in the sun, And being out in the sun means you want to expose your skin as much. Obviously, there are challenges, especially if you're white, with having too much sun exposure. By the way, I mean, some of this, I learned some new things too, that even black people get suntan. Not exactly, well, we do get darker here. Black people get skin cancer, but it's very, very rare. They can get sunburn. Yeah, that's what I was trying to remember. Sunburn. This lady in one of the meetings I had, she's like, even in the car, she's wearing her shorts, and she's driving out, and there's the sun out, so she can get sunburn. I mean, to me, that's an extreme case. Most of us do not. I don't know why black people tend to still trying to avoid the sun. I mean, it happens in Nigeria as well. But the only two ways you can get enough vitamin D are either being out in the sun a lot or what? What? Taking supplements. Those are the only two ways, folks. I don't know of any other way. And again, being a doctor, I mean, hospitals, doctors, they're all like, no, don't take supplements. It's like we're trained to hate supplements in the medical field. I think that's unfortunate. That's regrettable. Okay, because there are other things too. You don't get like potassium. You don't get enough unless again you're eating a lot of spinach. And who does that, right? Okay, so I'm just gonna get off my soapbox. So healthy foods, you do want to reduce your desserts, your cake, your candy. Okay, Halloween is over, so get back to eating normally now. Veggies are very important. If you're taking a lot of starchy foods, meats is good too. I mean, again, there's been this whole controversy, but a balanced diet is important. They're encouraging to have your last meal before 7 o'clock, maybe 8 o'clock, because you want to give your body time to digest and recover during the day. You don't want your body spending energy on digestion, especially between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. because those are the times that the brain needs its recovery. So you don't want to divert the energy and the resources that are meant for healing and protecting the brain to the gut. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So eat healthy. Olive oil is many of these cooking oils we're beginning to see when they're heated too high, they can produce chemicals that can damage the brain. So these vegetable oils, when we used to think because they're vegetable oils, they are good for you. No, they're not. Canola oil, the other oils, especially when they're fried, can be damaging to the brain and the body and can increase your cardiovascular risk.
So you're saying to use olive oil?
Olive oil, yes.
And then avocado oil.
Avocado oil too. Those are good as well. I mean, they don't taste as good, but I guess you have the right to your own opinion, okay?
How does ghee fit in?
Ghee, isn't that like that's like a probiotic? It's like fermented food, right?
No, the ghee is the clarified butter.
Clarified?
Clarified butter. They take the milk solids out of it, and it's just oil.
Oh, just the oil?
Just the oil from
Okay.
butter.
So animal fats, like butter and all that, believe it or not, a lot better than vegetable oils. A lot better. So yeah, that'll be good. Again, the challenge is frying stuff. I think it's still better than vegetable oil. But what happens when you fry or you heat oils to very high temperatures is that they transform into something that can be quite toxic, especially if you do it on a regular basis. So ghee, I'm not too familiar. I thought it was a fermented food, but I got it wrong. So ghee, but if it's animal fat, animal butter, I guarantee you it's safer than vegetable oils. Safer than canola oil, for sure. Yes, ma'am?
How about palm oil?
Palm oil, that's another question. I mean, because we grew up eating that a lot. Where are you from?
Right here,
So you take palm oil?
all the time.
Where did you start taking? I mean, that's not something we do in Baltimore, right? I'm saying we now because I'm trying to identify with you guys.
I use it in cooking.
You grew up like that, taking it? Did you grow up?
Not grew up like it, but I've been using it for over 30 years.
Interesting. So I've been trying to figure out I mean, and I've checked it out. Some people say it's bad, some people say it's good. I mean, it does have some very healthy things in it too. But again, the heat, the frying of the oil to high degrees may be a challenge. And I'm sorry, can't give you a really good answer now, but it's iffy. It's iffy, okay? But it's still better than vegetable oil, I can tell you that.
And coconut oil?
Coconut oil is fantastic.
I make my own chocolate.
Good. From chocolate from coconut oil?
Coconut oil, cocoa butter, and cocoa powder.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah.
Spinach. She takes spinach and she's like, oh my God.
Here's the question of the century.
What?
Which artificial sweetener is going to take the longest to kill me?
Woo. Which artificial sweetener is going to take the longest to kill you? Well, so first of all, you don't want to take artificial sweeteners. They're all bad.
That was my question.
Man?
We're guessing stevia? Which one is it, Lynn?
Stevia is better. Stevia is not an it's made from plants, so it's natural. So the artificial ones are the ones that are like sucralose and what was the other one again? Sweet and low.
Aspartame.
Aspartame.
Yeah. Xylitol.
Xylitol is good.
Xylitol kills animals. Erythritol is one that was Cleveland Clinic said it was good in 2019 and changed their mind in 2023.
Really?
I'm a diabetic, so I'm.
Okay, so you research. So you found out that xylitol is bad for humans?
Xylitol kills animals, dogs and cats. Xylitol is poisonous to dogs and cats.
How about humans?
It's not poisonous to humans,
Okay,
but I don't want to have it in my house if I have dogs and cats.
got it. Yeah, that
I
makes
now
sense.
use allulose. I have no idea. It's not the same as sucralose.
Allulose. I've heard about that, but I don't know what. I don't know much about it. Yeah,
So which one?
that's a technical term, right?
What do you send to use?
So stevia is the least harmful of them all because it's natural and from a plant. So stevia would be it. There's something called trehalose, which is like it's a sugar. It's half as sweet as sugar. We used to use it a lot. I mean, because it also had some brain benefits as well. There's a center in Houston that used to ship it to me in Nigeria. And I used to use it for the kids with brain disorders. They said it would help even with Trehalose. Trehalose. It's good for diabetics as well. So you can do some research on that. Maybe check with your doctor. Always have to add that at the end of everything I say. Huh? Yeah. Okay. Challenge yourself again. That's the 6 points. The whole point is we're trying to ensure that the network is maintained. The more the brain needs, it must have stimulation. It must have challenge. If you're not providing it with it, it tends to get bored and it tends to go to sleep. And when it goes to sleep, it's not producing these network connections. The more you stimulate the brain, either by games or social interactions or exercise or drumming or boxing or kicking,
Or even switching the hand that you brush your teeth with.
or even switching the hands you brush your teeth with, something new, novelty that is not used to it. All those things force the brain to produce network connections. And as we established at the beginning, the more network connections you have, as a rule, the healthier and more resilient your brain will be. Does that make sense?
Yeah. There was a book written called Neurobics.
Neurobics.
And it was like standing on the opposite foot, doing that kind of thing.
Nice.
Not turning the light on when you come in, not going right. Whatever your routine is,
Yeah,
just
switch things around. And that challenges the brain, and then it adapts, and it makes those connections to be able to adapt to that. So that's really, what do you call it? Neurobics. Okay, that's pretty cool. Let me see what else have we not covered now.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So sometimes you have to take medicine. You have no choice.
Yes.
That isn't going to be great for your brain. An example is I had breast cancer 3 years ago. I had to do 6 months of chemo.
Yes.
And I knew it wasn't great for, the stuff I was trying to get rid of, but it's not great for your brain.
Yes.
What can you do knowing that, you've got to fight the worst evil here, but at the same time, you know that you're damaging your brain. So is there anything besides what we've talked about that you can do when you have to take a medicine that is harmful?
That's a great question. So let's start with antibiotics, for instance. Antibiotics generally kill microbes, right? What we now know is that there are good microbes that are extremely important for everything about health. And when you wipe out your microbes, the good microbes, you lose the benefits of the good microbes. So what I recommend is you got to take, the microbes need vitamin D. Microbes also need, good microbes that is, they also need the B complex. There are 8 of them. So I would strongly recommend that you maintain your B vitamins, your C and your D vitamins, especially if you're taking this drugs. Also, and this isn't as familiar to people, or people are not familiar with this, probiotics. Is anybody familiar with those things? Oh, you are, fantastic. So there are specific probiotics that are really, really good to replenish the good bacteria. So I deal with kids with autism a lot. And one of the big things they have is that they've got a lot of bad bacteria. It's like a huge, the term is dysbiosis. It's like the bads have overtaken the goods, and it's like 90 to 1 or 90 to 10. Same thing with dementia. Even Parkinson's disease, we're finding out that many of the good bacteria, they've lost the diversity. As you grow older, you lose the diversity of bacteria, but it's a lot worse when you have a brain condition like dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So part of my toolkit is also to provide the good bacteria for my patients. So that's a really good question. So antibiotics, chemotherapeutic agents, things, these mental health, what do they call them now? Sedatives, antidepressants, even anticholinesterases, like some of these simple things like cough syrup, cough medicine, allergy medications. They shut down probably the most important neurotransmitter for brain function is called acetylcholine. Ever heard of that? Some of these cough medications can affect the production of acetylcholine and cause memory problems. They've done studies on that, it's on the news as well. Laxatives as well, antacids. I know people struggle with that. Big problem with antacids as well. Antacids can actually shut down your digestive system, shut down the production of acids, obviously, but also shut down your ability to absorb things like vitamin B12. By the way, vitamin B12, you could have dementia just from being deficient in that one single vitamin. We have people coming to the emergency room with severe dementia and psychosis, acting up and all that. And when we do the workup, we find out that the one thing they were missing was also that vitamin B12. Give them one shot of vitamin B12, they're back to normal.
Just because you mentioned that, I do want to clarify dementia versus delirium. That what you just described is delirium. So whether it's an adverse drug reaction, an infection, that's not necessarily dementia, correct?
It is it's still a reversible form of dementia, vitamin B12. Yes, they could come with the acute psychotic problems, but there are others too that they may not be psychotic at all. They just have dementia. They are confused, they're not able to function, they don't remember stuff, and it could go on for years. So it's not like an acute thing. In some cases, it's not an acute thing to bring them to the emergency room. I was just trying to point out that...
But it's reversible, which
yes.
I think is the big thing.
Yes.
Like a urinary tract infection as you get older can cause dementia.
Yes,
but you don't have it if you fix the problem.
If your doctor knows to look for it and fix the problem, yes. Yeah, good, that's a good point. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay, looks like we've kind of gone through it, and looks like some people are coming in. Is there a function here?
No, it's in the room next door.
Oh, okay. So can they get in there, or they have to go?
They might walk through, but they can go through the hall.
Got it, okay. All right. Well, I think we've gone through everything. So, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
What's the difference in vitamin D and vitamin D3?
So vitamin D is the umbrella term. Then you've got vitamin D1, D2, and D3. Most doctors would recommend, or they would prescribe, the prescription form of vitamin D is vitamin D2. And they give high doses like 50,000, 100,000. What we know is that the D3, which you don't need a prescription for, is actually more effective and more bioavailable, and you have less risk of toxicity than the D2. So, I mean, you can go to Sam's Club and get 6 months worth of vitamin D3 for less than $10. But you might have to pay a lot more if you are going to the doctor and get a prescription. Well, like I said, please check your vitamin D levels.
All right, well, we'll wrap up now, but Dr. Ajibade, would you stay a little bit for some questions?
Yes.
Okay, well,
absolutely.
But thank you so much. Join me in thanking Dr. David and for coming, and if you have any other questions, feel free. Thank you all for coming today.
Oh yes, so just a minute. We do have some other materials. 10 ways to love your brain, evaluating memory and thinking problems, what your doctor should, thank you.
Okay.
What?
I can hand out some stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
These are one of each.
Here.
Yes.
Okay.
We're gonna say something. Yeah. Is it where?
Here's your word. Three handouts.
Good. Fantastic. Oh, you.
Oh, thanks. No more women.
Yes.
But I thought but more men get pregnant.
That's true.
So I thought it had to do with the male, female, person, whatever.
Can you give me one slight second? She was just asking me a question.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you didn't give us.
But I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
So you asked me a question.
Yes, I do. Travel romantic at the same time. I believe you got it. I gave you two. So you can check if you want, or I can always give it to you. Someone said there was two in there.
Not really. See the brain, any flicker, even if your eyes are closed, any flicker is gonna mess with you. But your brain will see it as light, even though your eyes are closed.
I'm gonna try it, but it's really quiet and there's no noise.
Yeah.
I can't.
But if it's dark, you can sleep, right?
No, I need rings.
Well,
Maybe let me see if I can.
well, noise is not as bad. I'm talking about light now. I'm talking about light, darkness. So you might still have some noise. It doesn't affect you as much as light does. I promise you. Yes, ma'am. What?
Olive oil
don't exercise a lot because I don't have a stroke. Knowing that he's probably and so we are trying to address this right now. That affects me. Besides, the one thing about this B12 is in this case, give me a little bit.
Yeah, B12 helps the brain, helps in the repair and the protection.
And I cried too. They were so good at it. I didn't want anything else. I didn't want anything.
It may.
No chicken bacon.
When it comes to dementia, you need to hit several different things at the same time. Yeah. So. Yeah. I gotta tell you, this is not an answer question I can answer. Just. I'd love to give you my information. I do schedule times for consultations. Where we can sit down and kind of go through what he's doing and make some suggestions. But it's all on deciding that you know that I'm not a doctor here. I'm a licensed practice here, so I gotta have that sign to have a waiver. But I mean, I wish I could tell you a straight answer now, but it doesn't seem like it's a straight answer. You have to go over a few things, ask a few questions. I know, and you need some help too. There's some things I can recommend for you as well. So you're probably not taking. So yeah, so it's not just something I just go to the pharmacy and get this. I deal with caregivers like you all the time too. Caregivers and the patients themselves. But like I said, it's not going to take 10 minutes. The answer doesn't come in 2 minutes. So. Sure, if you need my information, I think I can just give me a second when I finish that.
I really have to.
You have to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
My aide wants to leave.
Got it.
So, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
It was very, very informative.
Absolutely. Pleasure. Let me give you card. I don't know my card is. You want me to give you my phone number? I would hate for you to leave without having some kind of way you can connect with me.
Can you leave it with,
Are you sure? Yeah.
Where'd she go?
You know, nothing has been confirmed yet, but when you put a microwave to your head all the time, there's bound to be some issue.
Excuse me, can you just give it to the front desk, Harriet, sure.
Sure.
I used to work.
Oh, you used to work here, okay. Is that her name, Harriet?
Harriet.
Okay.
I have short-term memory problems, but my students tell me so did they. And I have a feeling that some folks disorient people and lose track of time. That's my theory.
I used to have headaches putting cell phone in my head. I used to have headaches.
Canceled it because
Headaches. Yeah, I used to have headaches, but maybe not memory loss. But I know they do affect. Those waves will mess up with the transmission in your brain to some degree. I don't know about short-term memory.
Yeah, so as I said, I find my students say they have the same problem. So, and they're a lot younger than I am. So, and I don't know how much age has to do with it, but I do crossword puzzles.
Good.
And I find that that's stimulating and it keeps your brain active.
Okay.
So I was doing body talking.
Oh,
yeah.
So it keeps me, and I can do it at the same time as I hear what you're trying to say. So I think that's probably good.
I think it is. And I hear juggling too is good, so if you want to try that.
And I do exercise 3 times a week
Fantastic.
per year. But it's, I find that I get more exercise gardening than I do with the formula type of exercise. very nice here. We have a whole interesting.
I'm really impressed. I'm really interested. Yeah.
Thanks,
Great.
Rob.
Thank you. Have a good one. Sure. Let me turn this off. I just realized this was off.